The Syrians are also born skivers. They're dirty, smelly and untrustworthy, and of course they're friends of the awful gibbers!
How much signal I need to cut across 8 lane? None? I turn now.
The only black woman in China, and she found the chicken. That's all I'm saying, all right? That's all I'm saying.
Are you a stereotype or an individual? Ladies and gentlemen, there is a serious problem with our media today. While diversity alone may not be a problem, the way it's portrayed in our media is. Let's have a look. The Broadcast Act of Canada emphasizes more than once on reflecting on the multicultural nature of our great country. However, this may not be acted out in practice. Here are some views on diverse media.
Diversity within ethnic cultures and ethnicity generally is underrepresented.
So the production side of it, there is an underrepresentation of ethnic minorities there. Even statistically speaking, they're not proportionally represented in our media system.
I think it's a pretty good balance now. I mean, we even have a lot of different ethnic media outlets that work together with Fairchild TV and others. So, you know, I think it's pretty well covered.
The anchors, I think we have a pretty good coverage as well in terms of the different minority groups.
Now, a lot of kids shows were just white kids on there, and now when I'm babysitting, I see that there are all sorts of different ethnicities.
I've noticed more people of color in TV shows and represented even in the news as newscasters and whatnot.
In pursuit of diversity, we've okayed the stereotyping of certain races, religions, and cultures for the sake of comedy and news.
Diversity is not the goal. It's never the goal. Diversity is always the means to another goal. And in the case for CBC, as would be the case for the private broadcasters, the goal is to reflect contemporary Canada.
The thing about stereotypes on both mainstream entertainment and information media is that they come from a little tiny kernel of truth. Little tiny kernel of truth. And the problem with stereotypes is when that becomes the whole definition of a whole race or ethnicity of people.
And I've seen in sitcoms that sometimes stereotypes are exaggerated, like you know, like if you have a Hispanic guest character for one episode of a sitcom, then that the Hispanicness of that person is exaggerated to the extent that it becomes comic.
Well, I was reading a study not that long ago about Aboriginal children in Canada who deny that they're Aboriginal because the representation of Aboriginal people is so negative, especially in the North, that they just say, well, I'm not an Indian.
There could be agendas being played behind stereotyping and framing.
Is it a coincidence? I don't think it's a coincidence that Arabs are villainized. That the Russian villains, the Soviet villains have been substituted by Middle Eastern villains and Arab villains, and it reflects the geopolitics of our age.
Here are some of the common stereotypes that were mentioned on the streets of Vancouver.
They always show we are terrorists and we kill people, but we are not. Because when I came here, my friend, she's Korean, and she told me, before I meet you, I thought every Saudi had gun and they will kill everyone.
Mexicans are poor and uneducated and criminals.
If you're a First Nation, obviously you drink a lot, right? Or else you probably don't work.
Asians are good at math.
Indian person as a, you know, working at a convenience store.
Blacks are gangsters or criminals.
The nerdy Indian.
On a positive note, people also added that there has been progress over the years.
Much. I mean, some of the programming, like CBC has Little Mosque on the Prairie, and so you know, there's different sorts of angles that they come from. But I think it's always with the purpose of showing how everybody's Canadian.
I think the normalization is happening.
Or at least maybe I'm an optimist. I like to think that people's encounter with the world is not limited to media, and definitely not limited to one particular type of media.
You can't choose how you look when you're born, and you can't choose which environment you're born into, but it is your opinion as to what you choose to look into and be interested in.
Let's stop with the stereotypes. We're all unique individuals. Think for a moment, if you were Arab, Asian, Aboriginal, or part of any other targeted group, how would you want yourself to be represented on TV or film? Let's move forward and break the stereotypes. Let's take control of our media and show our individual identities.